Yeah, what's good, my peaceful people? What's good? It's been a long time, so I had to come with a little bit of theatrics or something like, you know what I'm saying? What's good? I know y'all missed me. I missed y'all. I definitely, it don't seem like it, but I missed y'all. You know what I mean? Attention in the other directions, you know what I'm saying? Definitely focused on some other things, but I had to come back, you know what I mean? Because I'm a person who tries to do what I said I'm gonna do. So I said that there was a few things, y'all thought I just forgot about this place, just left this place. He said this, he was just talking stuff. Nah, I said that I got this I Ching thing that we gonna do, right? We dealing with the Shekham's I Ching transcripts, and we left off at hexagram 11. All right, so we had to come back. Yeah, here we are, and we about to bust it, right? Okay, so we are at, oh yeah, y'all see where we at, right? We in Nefer. We got it going on too. We got, not quite the sun, it's the daytime, right? So that's the fire. We got the earth, y'all see that big tree, that's the earth. We got the water going on, you know what I'm saying? And the air, we in the spot, you know what I'm saying? All four is here, you know what I mean? This is Nefer, and it's a beautiful thing. And we in it. And don't I look good in this Nefer? Don't I look good? I know I look good, yeah. Yeah, and thank you for being with me, all right? All right, so I'm talking right now. I'm saying a lot of stuff. Let's get into it, okay? I'm gonna see how far I can go. I've been training my my eyes, right? Because as I've been getting my grades, my eyes is trying to, do this funny thing. So y'all see me with my old man's, right? Today I got my young man's on, all right? So let's see what happens here. Let's see how I can do here. All right, we are talking about hexagram 12, standstill, okay? Stagnation, okay? And here we go. Let's go to hexagram 12, standstill, stagnation, which is the complement of hexagram 11, right? We just did that. Well, not just, maybe a year ago or something. We just did it, right? This is the last one, put it like that. All right. This hexagram is the opposite of the preceding one. Heaven is above, drawing further and farther away, while earth below sinks further into the depths. Again, meaning what you know to be true is withdrawing from your emotions. Okay? What you know to be true is withdrawing from your emotions. Your emotions are going one way, and your knowledge is going the other way. Right? And I'm sure he'll probably speak about this, but what he's speaking about is the two trigrams that make up the hexagram number 12 kind of go like this, right? We have Chien, which rises, right? And Kun, which sinks, right? So Kun is on the bottom, right? The three broken lines, the three yin lines are on the bottom, and Chien is the three firm lines on the top, right? So they go in opposite directions, and what you have when that happens is standstill. Okay, so that's a little bit on the image, and he'll probably speak to this, but let's check it out. So, all right, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. Those who cannot or are not relating to those who don't know, etc. Wait a second, run that back. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. Those who know cannot or not will or are not relating to those who don't know. Okay, so we're talking about opposites, right? Whereas the small, which did not know or could not or could have been evil or whatever, was taking the depart in 11th hexagram. Now they are approaching and taking over in the 12th hexagram, right? The small is taking over, which is leading to stagnation, right? The cause of stagnation is just not simply the lack of communication between the high and the lowly. It is also a taking over. Interesting. All right, so it is the lowly, the ignorant, occupying the position of control. The 11th hexagram, emotions are submitting to the knowledge of truth, or ought to, right? So he's saying that in the 11th hexagram, what makes the hexagram peace is that you have those same hexagrams, right? The same Chien is now on the bottom and Kun is on the top, right? So what happens is Kun sinks and Chien rises. So now you have a togetherness, you have a peaceful situation, right? So that's the opposite of this one, right? So, right, yeah, so things that are light are happening there. Things that are promoting peace are happening there, whereas the opposite is true here, right? In the read it again. In the 11th hexagram, emotions submit or are submitting to the knowledge of truth or ought to, right? You know, the emotions, right? Emotions kind of do their own thing, right? You know, and when there's a situation of peace, what you have is that wildness of the emotions submitting, right, to the light, submitting to the knowledge, submitting to what is high, right? Okay, so we have the time of standstill and decline here, right? Standstill is just not simply not getting worse, or actually, it is actually a decline. It is really a time of decay. There is something that is misleading about the term standstill. If there is blood stagnating in your venous system, it is just not holding there. You are getting worse by the moment, okay? If there's blood stagnating in your veins, pretty much, then it's just not holding there. You are getting worse by the moment, okay? So, all right, so now I'll go to the text. Right, remember, this is a transcripted series, lecture series. So he's talking as he's reading a book. He's reading from the Wilhelm and Bain's Book of Changes, right? I Ching Book of Changes, and also the Chu and Sherrill Astrology to I Ching, right? Okay, but y'all know this from previous episodes, right? Okay, so now we're going back to the text. The hexagram is linked with the 7th month, August/September. Talking about a different calendar. All right, so when the year is past, its zenith and autumnal decay is setting in. And back to Shekum talking. That is the 7th months. That is 7 months after the beginning of the year, February, March. Okay, back to the text. The judgment, standstill, evil, people do not further. Evil people do not further. Back to Shekum. Evil people do not further things. They don't help things, or evil thoughts, evil emotions, evil ideas, or just ignorant ideas, not necessarily evil. Back to the text. The great departs, the small approaches. Shekum. The great means that which is knowledge, light. The great means that which is knowledge, light. Back to the text. Heaven and earth are out of communion, and all things are benumbed. Okay, I've never heard that word. All things are benumbed, all right? I'm assuming that's being like made numb, right? Made still, made stagnant, right? What is above has no relation to what is below, and on earth confusion and disorder prevail. So, you know, this is what you're looking at when you draw a 12th hexagram. You're looking at a situation where things are in standstill. There is no relation. You might ask about, you know, going to a particular place, right? A job, right? And you get the standstill. Well, you probably won't have a great time there, right? You're going to have to endure, you know, some level of ignorance where there is a departing of parties, right? Or, you know, a non-meeting of minds, right? And it's not necessarily an argument, right? It's a kind of a cold war, you know what I mean? Kind of a, you know, there's no emotionalism about it. There's no, you know, it's standstill. It's just stillness, right? Nothing's happening, okay? So, all right, let's go back. We got, okay, so back to the text. Heaven and earth are out of communion, and all things are benumbed. What is above has no relation to what is below, and on earth confusion and disorder prevail. Back to Shekum. That confusion and disorder is not having any law of the time to regulate, to regulate your life anymore. The 12th hexagram is just not simply a condition that comes to you when you get it. As a matter of fact, your life right now, in general, is 12 hexagram situation from living in a Western society. The Western way of life is a good picture of the 12 hexagram. Okay, there are no time regulations for doing anything. It is a society that is mechanically directed. Daylight saving time. You go to work at a time that is most convenient to the employer, to the business, to the industry, to productivity. The alarm wakes you up. Your body, Okay, so we're talking about someone who is speaking. So I'm reading someone speaking like talk, right? So something your body, and I can't see that word. Your body, when it has revitalized and regenerated, the alarm wakes you up out of sleep. Right, so this is a little funny because it's cut off and I can't really fully see, the text kind of cut off. Pardon. All right, y'all just gonna have to figure it out, but y'all bright minds like me, so we can do this. Check it out. All right, you have to eat and then go back to doing something intellectual work on a full stomach. Fundamental physiology says that something you eat, especially a considerable amount of food, a heavy lunch even, something blood withdraws from the head and is concentrated to the stomach. The something flow, the fluid flow, the blood flow of the body is not such that the body can give blood to any part of the body to meet the demands equally and effectively in different places. The blood can only be concentrated effectively one place at a time. If you eat and go swimming, you get cramps. Why? Because the digestion of the food is a high priority and there's not enough blood to send to the legs, so you get cramps in the legs. Bet y'all didn't know that. I didn't. Right. That's why this book is a gem. Right. If you eat heavily, you get drowsy and you may fall asleep. Right. What happens is that the blood has withdrawn from the head to digest the food. If you eat a heavy lunch or dinner, there is not enough blood in the brain for you to do any intellectual work effectively, whether that be schoolwork or for your job. The result is that you split the blood. Okay? Digestion is imperfect, and there is a big strain on the nervous system, which has now, right, it's an H there, I can't see, right? Which has now been forced to do its work with the improper supply of blood. And that's why the two leading pharmaceutical products and nerve remedies are digestive remedies. Okay, interesting, right? And the highest amount of digestive problems are nerve related. Headaches are from all that schoolwork and job work being done on a full stomach. Interesting. All of the idiocy of Western society. So he's speaking about the way a non-spiritual or non-esoterically, focused society cultivates their way, right? And how it is not in touch with nature, how it is not in touch with harmony, right? So he gave many examples about that, right? And we're into the diet, right? All the idiocy in the Western society, the bureaucratic bungling, the academic bungling, is because people are trying to solve problems with a stomach full of hamburgers and hot dogs or whatever. Organic foods doesn't make a difference. Okay? If you want to understand the hexagram, relate the hexagram to actual life situations. This is a very good example of the reign of confusion and disorder. That's the Dante's hell is all about. That's what Dante's hell is all about. The reign of confusion and disorder. As a matter of fact, we find in Greek mythology the story of how Uranus, who is the god that symbolizes all things futuristic and anarchistic, Uranus is the anarchist. Uranus is the genius patron deity of electronics and all electrical things, etc. What does he do? He castrates the father Chronos, time, right? The end, right? Do you understand what I'm talking about? This is nothing else but something white man symbolically. This is nothing else but something white man symbolically through his mythologies telling you what he is going to do to the world. Right? What's he going to do to the world, right? Hey, and look at society. I laugh because, it's bold, it's harsh, and I'm sure there's white people listening. But I mean, hey man, we're only talking the truth here. So, this is, humble yourself to the truth. You know what I mean? Don't, he talking about white people, I ain't gonna listen to him. Hey man, you're gonna miss a lot. And you're gonna delude yourself into thinking that white people are right when they doing stuff like this. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know what, somebody needed to hear that, so I said it. Okay. He is going to create anarchy and destroy the world by getting rid of the laws of time. You don't understand. You think that it is Greek mythology. No, those are divine revelations of what life is going to be on Earth. Interesting. So, I can speak to that. I'm not going to speak to that. And keep on going. Getting back to the story here, if you want to understand this hexagram, the foundation of it is living out the framework of time. There is no order. There is no knowledge of the law of time, and that is what puts heaven and earth out of communion with each other. People not living in Tao. If you want to understand who we, the people who live Tao, go to the I Ching, right? N-E-I Ching, right? The Yellow Emperor's classic of internal medicine. Which is an ancient book, okay? And this ancient book itself says, in ancient times, men lived the laws of the Tao and communicated beyond the 8 distant places, etc., as they are still doing in Africa today. And in the SRSS society, we are still communicating beyond the 8 distant places. Right? I want you to understand that these ancient people who lived the Tao are your African ancestors. And that way of life is still very much alive and burning in your blood. Listen to it. Right? The Chinese know where they come from, right? And that's why they went back. You know what I'm saying? Chinese come from black folk. A lot of these folks were brown folk, right? Fu-He, the brown, the darkness, the melanin of Fu, right? The Fu in his name is communicating to you the melanin of the man, right? Because melanin is internal, and that Fu means internal, right? So yeah, they know who they are, right? And so when they speak of the ancestors, that's who they're talking about. They're talking about the original black folk that started their society, right? All right. Okay, back to the text. The dark power is within. The light power is without. Weakness is within. Harshness is without. Second. There is no Meneb here, right? Meneb, we talked about, is the stilling of the, emotional sphere, right? The ability to still oneself, right? Still one's heart. Meneb it literally means stilling the heart to be able to live truth. Meneb enokim ma'at. We talked about that before, right? There is no wisdom here inside of you. It is a symbolism of stagnation when there is no Meneb, right? There is no wisdom, so how do you act? Harshly towards others. That is the symbol of a stagnated person. Okay, back to the text. Within are the inferior, and without are the superior. The way of the inferior is in ascent, right? The way of the superior people is on the decline. But the superior people do not allow themselves to be turned from their principles. Shekem. Meaning, if you are in society where the inferior people are all around you, don't give up. You may be called weird, different, the whole bit. Back to the text. Yeah, that's so true. That's crazy. Yeah, man, Sahu running things, bro. Like, you know, if you are, you know, like my funny family members who refer to what I'm doing is, what they said is called, oh man, don't tell me I can't remember it. It's the Rukatu shit. Hey, damn, you ain't coming over here with that Rukatu shit, is you? Yeah, that's real. That's real life right there. You know what I mean? The ignorance is in command, right? In, you know, 2025 America, right? So, you know, or, you know, really the world, you know what I'm saying? Ignorance is running things. It's like the light is something that used to be. The light on society or in society, something that used to be, man. You know, so many systems have, you know, spawned upon the planet to dumb the people down. That's what's happening, you know. But anyway, I keep, you know, getting off. Let me try to stick to this text here. All right, so we talked about nominab, right? Stimulate, symbol of a stagnated person. Okay. Within are the inferior, without are the superior. The way of the inferior is on the ascent. The way of the superior people is on the decline. But the superior people do not allow themselves to be turned from their principles. Meaning that if you're in a society where inferior people are all around you, don't give up. You'll be called weird, different, the whole bit. Back to the text. If the possibility of exerting influence is closed to them, they nevertheless remain faithful to their principles and withdraw into seclusion. Interesting. The image, so interesting. The image, this is the text. Yo, I'm just coming back, yo. I'm getting back into the flow of it, right? So we're back to the text. The image. Heaven and earth do not unite. The image of standstill. Thus, the superior man falls back on his inner worth or order to escape the difficulties. He does not permit himself to be honored with revenue. Shakma. Meaning you cannot buy a superior man away from his virtues. The superior man will remain true to his virtues, not go off and prostitute himself selling wisdom to others. The superior man can go out there and make money for himself because he has great intelligence. He could use his wisdom to make great money, but no, he remains true to his spiritual culture. He does not give it up. He lives in poverty if he has to, pure and simple. Okay? Leave it right there. Back to the text. When owing to the influence of the inferior man, mutual mistrust prevails in public life, fruitful activity is rendered impossible because the fundaments are wrong. Therefore, the superior man knows what he must do under such circumstances. He does not allow himself to be tempted by dazzling offers to take part in public activities. This would only expose him to danger, since he cannot assent to the meanness of others. Assent to the meanness of others? He therefore hides his inner worth and withdraws into seclusion. Okay? This hexagram is, back to Shekhem. This hexagram is symbolic of inferior ways around you, and if you are superior or want to act the superior man, the way the superior man would act, this is what you would do. You would not assent in the inferior ways around you, even if it means withdrawing from the public. The inferior man might rationalize, but the oracles is saying to you here that you will hurt yourself. What is waiting for you down the road, the superior man can see. The inferior man can only see up to where his nose protrudes. The harm is all the way down the road. Interesting. And in the long run, you go through a temporary thing. But why? Because as long as you remain faithful to your principles, the deity's got your back. Okay. All right. Yeah. So that's a reason to withdraw from the ignorance that's trying to, like encase you, right? When ignorance is out there, doing this thing, withdraw. You know what I'm saying? You can't make your influence felt. Withdraw. You know what I'm saying? Dumb gonna get dumber. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you gotta let dumb do his thing, and you do yours. Okay, so let's go to the first line of the text. Okay, first line. When ribbon grass is pulled up, the side comes to it. The side comes with it, each according to his kind. Perseverance brings good fortune and success. In the latter, the 11th hexagram, a man is drawing another along with him on the road of an official career. Here, a man is drawing another with him into retirement from public life. This is why the text says here, perseverance brings good fortune and success. Back to Shepherd. Another retyping of this hexagram could be, how does the superior man conduct himself in times of decadence? Okay? That is a good way of retitling and renaming this hexagram if you want to understand this hexagram. So, y'all might want to write that down if you're taking notes, right? I'll read it again. Another retyping of this hexagram could be how the superior man conducts himself in times of decadence, right? All right. So, how should the superior man conduct himself in times of decadence, confusion, and disorder? In times of social ignorance on a grand scale, if you cannot influence people, decline from them. That's why you find that Osiris Set has no kind of advertising campaign. We don't recruit. People come and they may leave. The way of the superior man is difficult, and we are just simply here to do our best to help teach you. We do best to help you cut it. We do our best to help you cut it, but if you can't cut it, then you have to withdraw. Line 2, back to the text. They bear and endure. This means good fortune for the inferior people. The standstill serves to help the great man to attain success. Inferior people are ready to flatter their superiors in a servile way. They would also endure the superior man if he would put an end to their confusion. This is fortunate for them, but the great man calmly bears the consequence of the standstill. He does not mingle with the crowd of the inferior. That is not his place. By his willingness to suffer personally, he ensures the success of his fundamental principles. Back to Shepherd. This is very heavy here. There is a statement in the Yellow Emperor's classic of internal medicine that says the superior man does not attempt to heal the inferior man. The inferior people are ready to flatter their superiors in a servile way. They would also endure the superior man if he would put an end to their confusion. This is fortunate for them, but the great man calmly bears the consequences of the standstill. This is heavy. So he just read it again and said this is heavy. So the superior man might be able to find a way to soften greatly the sufferings that are the natural occurrence of leading an inferior way of life. Read that again. The superior man might be able to find a way to soften greatly the sufferings that are the natural consequence of leading an inferior way of life. Let me give you an example. AIDS comes, I don't know why that is like that. Okay. AIDS comes from sexual practices that aren't too social. So is syphilis and gonorrhea spread by unsocial sexual practices. If you found through your meditation or whatever a clear-cut way of eradicating these illnesses, which given the way of the inferior man thinks would be carte blanche now to all kinds of unsocial, incorrect sexual activities. Think about it. I'll read that again. If you found through your meditation or whatever a clear-cut way of eradicating these illnesses, which given the way the inferior man thinks would be carte blanche now to all kinds of unsocial, incorrect sexual activities. Think about it. What I'm saying to you is that there are many sages around that have the answers to many health problems in terms of ameliorating or healing, but illness is a part of the divine scheme of things that are the checks and balances to learning and growth on earth. It's deep. Like, illness is the consequence of not living the laws. And it's a God thing. It ain't, it's not the negative spirits or the devil. No, it's just the way that things are ordered. It's ma'at. It's what happens as a consequence of the negative. Things get out of balance. Illness is a state of imbalance. Right, okay. Right, if you found your way, okay, right, did that. All right, think about it, what I'm saying, right, did that. Okay, all right, the inferior man looks at suffering as something to be avoided at all costs. The superior man looks at suffering as a check upon evil conduct. Illness and suffering is a check against evil conduct. All right, interesting. So, oh wow, whole family of ducks is checking me out. Wow, that's cool. Y'all should see this. Hey, duckies, what's poppin'? They came over to say what's up. That's cool. They like checking. Check it out. So, okay, so the inferior man looks at suffering as something to be avoided at all costs. The superior man looks at suffering as a check upon evil conduct. Illness and suffering is a check against evil conduct. It is a check against ignorant conduct. So the superior man looks at it in an entirely different way. That is what this line means here. Back to the text. Third line. They bear shame. The inferior people have risen to power illegitimately. The inferior people who have risen to power illegitimately do not feel equal to the responsibility they have taken upon themselves. In their hearts they begin to be ashamed, although at first they do not show it outwardly. This marks a turn for the better. Back to Shechem. At lines 1 and 2, there is counsel to the superior man living in the time of stagnation and decadence. The third line is now speaking about the superior who has gotten to some place somewhere illegitimately. Superior or inferior? I wonder if... Okay, I'll keep on going. This is a key line, because when somebody gets this oracle, the oracle is saying that you cannot see it, but this person is changing. They feel ashamed. They feel remorse for what they're doing. And this is a good step. This is a first step that the person is taking towards changing. There is nothing that you can see outwardly. This is a transition from low to high. Okay. So they bear shame, right? It's just like, oh man, dag. You know what I'm saying? But in that process, you say, dag, man, I'll never do that again, because I hate this feeling right now. So yeah, there you go. All right, back to the text. Fourth line. He who acts at the command of the highest remains without blame. Those of like mind partake of the blessings. The time of standstill is nearing the point of change to its opposite. Whoever wishes to restore order must feel himself called to the task and have the necessary authority. A man who sets himself up as capable of creating order according to his own judgment could make mistakes and end in failure. But the man who is truly called to the task is favored by the conditions of the time, and all of those of like mind share his blessing. Back to Shechem. This is very important, because it says to you not to do things according to your own judgment, your own ideas and opinions. This is the biggest error of that Westerners make. This is something that is deeply ingrained within you. As I said to you earlier, you may come up with a solution. You may come up with a solution that satisfies the demand Y, but the solution X might violate other things around it. Right? So, you fix the carburetor, but at the same time you break the brake shaft. I don't know. I'm not a mechanic, but yeah, like you're fixing something, but you don't see how it affects something else. Or, you have this medicine, it helps my XYZ, but in small prints, these are the side effects that it's going to break at the same time. So it's not a full solution, right? When you get this line, the author does not say it, but I will say it. Go and ask the oracle whether or not, if you are suited for the task, or whomever it is that we are speaking about is suited for the task. It is a situation where there is a transition taking place from disorder to order, right? We're at the fourth line, which is one past the line of transition, which is the third line, right? So, now we're going towards a more positive situation, right? The hexagram is standstill, stagnation. The first three lines up into the change, which is the third line, they bear shame, right? Is a stagnating situation, right? But now in the last line, in that transition line, we saw they're feeling shame, so it's going to now, it gets the chance to change it to its opposite, right? They feel the shame, so now they can change it. So we're at the transition point in the hexagram. Now we're at line 4. He who acts at the highest command remains free of blame, right? So these are the better portions here, right? So when you get this line, the author is, all right, I just said that. I'll say it again. When you get this line, the author does not say it, but I will say it. Go and ask the oracle if you are suited for the task, or whomever it is that we're speaking about is suited for the task. It is a situation where there is a transition taking place from disorder to order. Okay? Can anybody tell me what kind of work this man would have to do? The nature of the work itself, the essence, the most important work this man would have to do. He has to bring forth the order according to the law of Tao, the time. Okay? He has to be an occultist, one who knows the laws of life and says, let us now create some order here. There is a time to do this, and there is a time to do that. And this belongs over here. Right? And this belongs over here. Because each moment of time is a quality. The passage of time is not just simply a quantitative change. It's a qualitative change. Qualities are changing. That is what time is. The power to do is being replaced by another power to do. And you must know what power is available now. Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay, go to the fifth line. Right, back to the text. Standstill is giving away. Standstill is giving way. Good fortune for the great man. Right, when we're saying the great man, we're talking about, the superior-minded individual. We're talking about not Sahu man, right, but Eb man, right, which is, one who is being governed by his will now, rather than just his emotions, right? We said great fortune for the great man. What if it should fail? What if it should fail? Okay, I'll run that back, right? This is all the text, right? Fifth line. Standstill is giving way. And I think this is the Chu and Sherelle book. Standstill is giving way. Good fortune for the great man. What if it should fail? What if it should fail? But it might be the Wilhelm. Here we have doubts cropping up. All right? The time undergoes a change. The right man, able to restore order, has arrived. Hence good fortune. But such periods of transition are the very times in which we must fear and tremble. Success is assured only through greatest caution, which asks always, what if it should fail? When a mulberry bush is cut down, a number of unusually strong shoots sprout from its roots. Here the image of tying something to a cluster of mulberry shoots is used to symbolize a way of making success certain. Confucius says about this line, danger arises when a man feels secure in his position. Destruction threatens when a man seeks to preserve his worldly estate. Confusion develops when a man has put everything in order. Confusion develops when a man has put everything in order. Okay, to shekel. Meaning that according to the laws of cycles, what happens is that you have an enlightened society creates order. Okay, you have an enlightened society creates order. Everybody now begins to study Onkin Ma'at, right? The laws of the seasons, etc. And the children grow up in this environment and take it for granted. What impelled the majority of the people to become masters of this knowledge was that dissolution and destruction was all around. And you were motivated by this for survival. And the children grow up in prosperity. They are motivated by other things. They don't try to understand, so then at some point they start to question, why should they do this at this time? And then the whole thing falls apart until destruction sets in once again and people start to look for solutions. The ageless wisdom has always been lost and refound. But the mulberry shoots. Let's go to Chu and Sherelle to understand the mulberry better. Okay, so there's my answer. He was reading from the Wilhelm and Baines book. All right, 5th line, Astrology of the I Ching. Text. The standstill is coming to an end. Fortune favors the superior man to restore conditions. Dangers still prevail. He strengthens himself like a bound cluster of mulberry trees. Okay, back to shekel. The 5th line speaks about now we have a man who understands the law of time. Pardon me. That's how you know the leader has arrived, the sage, the king, the enlightened ruler who understands the law of time and order. How to order things properly. But there is still danger. He is not out of all danger. It is just transitional. It is the beginning of in that transition. Fortune favors means that the laws of cycles is now favoring you. Back to the text. A leader capable of restoring peaceful conditions is now at hand. The time has nearly fulfilled itself in the cycle of stagnation and standstill. However, some dangers are still present. And therefore, in order to be certain of overcoming them, the superior man holds himself together as one might bind together a number of mulberry trees for added strength. This means that such a leader should marshal all his abilities for the greatest possible strength in order to overcome the dangers and restore conditions of peace. Another point of view is that such a person instructs and unites others. So likewise, obtaining added strength for overcoming whatever difficulties they mutually face. The real understanding of tying the mulberry trees together is uniting the people through instruction, through enlightenment. It is also holding yourself together, meaning meneb. The center is the heart. Keeping the heart still, keeping things together. But here, also, it means enlightening the people properly about that which will unify them and create order. Right? That is the key here, instruction. So when you get this line, instruction on how to come together and how to keep order within and without is important. Okay. All right. Y'all get it. All right. Line 6. The standstill comes to an end. First standstill, then great fortune. The standstill does not last forever. Shekel. It moves in cycles. Back to the text. However, it does not cease of its own accord. The right man is needed to end it. To shekel. You might ask, well, this is the law of Hexagram, the law of cycles, right? But the right man still has to come along. What it is saying here is that time will send the right man too. That's what is implied here also. meaning the forces, the deities, will find a vehicle through which to send and restore the world. Okay, back to the text. This is the difference between the state of peace and a state of stagnation. Continuous effort is necessary to maintain peace. Left to itself, it will change into stagnation and disintegration. The time of disintegration, however, does not change back automatically to a condition of peace and prosperity. Effort must be put forth in order to end it. This shows the creative attitude that man must take if the world is to be put in order. Back to Shepard. Here is one of the greatest teachings of the oracles, where it says, where there is peace, if you did not have a wise man keeping things peaceful, things would just deteriorate by themselves. But where there is standstill, it will not restore itself back into peace itself. The right man must come to teach. Okay, let me run it back, because that's the key here. Right? Here is one of the greatest teachings, the oracles, of the oracles, where it says, where there is peace, if you did not have a wise man keeping things peaceful, things would just deteriorate by themselves. But where there is standstill, it will not restore itself into peace by itself. Right? So, it don't take no effort for things to disintegrate and go standstillish. You know what I mean? But it takes great effort for things to come from standstill to peace. Right? So, it's not gonna, go your way haphazardly. You have to apply the effort, is what is being said. Right? Okay, so the right man must come and teach and put things back into proper perspective. And proper places to bring forth and restore things to a state of Tai, right? Tai Chi, right? Peace. If you get this last line, you need guidance and instruction. We're at the line of the sage, the sixth line, right? And that's going to be the case most times when you see the top line. You need to get some counsel, by an expert. Okay. With the last line, you need guidance and instruction. Don't forget that the truant Shirel pays more attention to roles, who is leading, who is following. If you get this fifth line and you know that you don't know the laws of Tao, you must find yourself someone who knows the laws of Tao. If you get the fourth line and again you know that you are not a master Taoist, go find yourself somebody. And again, that person must not follow his own judgment. That person must follow the laws of Tao. He must follow the oracles, which shows the way at every stage within the secrets of Tao. Okay. The 12th hexagram at lines 1 and 2 is how superior man functions in periods of darkness and decadence. Line 3 is a counsel to show... Line 3 is a counsel to show you that now the inferior is having an inner change of heart. Lines 4 through 6 speak about the restoration of disorder back to order. Basically, lines 4 and 5 are counsel to the leader. Are you a true leader? Make sure. Line 5, if you are the true leader, if you are the leader, make sure that you teach the people your wisdom. The top line speaks about the act. It is counsel to the people, telling them to be careful. Now we are back to peace and prosperity. Don't forget that you are brought out of this confusion through a leader, so maintain your loyalty to that leader, even though it is a question of cycles and time. The prosperity works through enlightenment. Okay. So, right. So, top line is basically, get some counsel, because you still need to, get more information on how to make the thing go forward. come up out of standstill, right? Right? Yeah, and that's the end, right? Just want to make sure I got the right stuff on that top line. Matter of fact, okay, yeah, let's do it. The top line speaks about the act. It is counsel to the people, telling them to be careful. Now we are back to peace and prosperity. Don't forget that you were brought out of this confusion through a leader, so maintain your loyalty to that leader. Even though it is a question of cycles and time, that prosperity works through enlightenment. Okay, right. Enlightenment is the thing that's going to make sure the prosperity goes, right? The effort, right? The effort of the light shining upon the darkness is what helps the darkness to become light. Not so the other way around, as we discussed, right? So that's that, right? What I'm going to do now is go to the Praxis, right? And I'm going to go through them lines real quick with the Praxis so we can put y'all on the proper axis. And to know that this is a fact, because it is. Alright, 0101. Interesting numbers. Okay. So let's pull up the Praxis. Alright. Alright. So let's go from line 1, right? Okay, let's close this book for my pages float away. Alright, so we got line 1 of Hexagram Standstill, right? Hexagram 12. In the time of Pi, standstill, disharmony between a person's will and the spirit, between people, or the declining prosperity prevails. Right? Okay, it is best to avoid beginning new undertakings or being expansive or attempting to make one's influence felt. The standstill is the manifestation of weakness in one's character or abilities that reveal themselves when the cycle of manifestation makes its downturn. At such a time, great undertakings cannot succeed. We must avoid joining in with people who are inclined to resort to illegal or unethical means of getting ahead in such times. Alright, y'all get it? Self-explanatory. Line 2. In the time of standstill, spiritually uncultivated people, in their ignorance of the law of cycles at work, or of the effects of identifying with the human nature, expect that the leaders are responsible for their bad state of affairs, and that she should therefore put an end to the problems. On the other hand, the man who understands the operation of the laws of cycles and spiritual laws uses the time of standstill to nourish her inner peace and joy, and to nourish visions of success for when the cycle turns upward. Okay? It is the only way, the wisdom and the spiritual power that will be obtained. Run it back. It is the only way that the wisdom and spiritual power that will be needed for success in the cyclical return of harmony can be obtained. Wasted resources and time will be the outcome if one were to attempt to reverse the waning prosperity, as in inferior man would. Okay, I'll run that back. My finger got confused with this thing. Right? Wasted resources and time will be the outcome if one were to attempt to reverse the waning prosperity as an inferior man would. Okay, so, go through the thing, understand what's happening, you know what I mean? Sometimes life sits you down so you can meditate on it. You know, sometimes you gotta sit down and grab some peace, you know what I mean, and just deal with the stagnation, deal with the stillness, deal with the fact that nothing's going on. But you know internally that there will be a time where things get back right, where the energy will move again, right, where the cycle will change, where, you know, and so you prepare for that. You know what I mean? That's what's going on here. You're preparing yourself for things to move again at some point, right? That is if you're thinking with the mentality of a superior. You know what I mean? The inferior is, woe is me, oh my God, why don't they fix this? They need to get this right, or, you know, whatever the case, right? Just, you know, not really taking any, you know, responsibility for their own, you know, circumstances while things are at a standstill. You know what I mean? Okay, keep it going. Line 3. It is a good sign if one begins to feel ashamed for ill-acquired goods, fame, position, material goods, etc. Change for the better begins with remorse over incorrect behavior. Self-explanatory, right? That's where, you know, it's a shame. And yeah, you got it. Like, you're looking in the mirror saying, damn, that was a shame. I shouldn't have done that. And that signifies better days, right? Line 4. The person who responds to the adversity of stagnation in harmony with divine law, peace and joy, will attract others to share in the happiness. All right? Person who responds to the adversity, that's the thing, is the response to the adversity is peace and joy. Right? Line 5. We are at the point where the cyclical movement or inner efforts towards harmony and prosperity is beginning to be established. It is then that we must avoid doubting that prosperity and harmony will return, as doubting exerts a powerful influence upon the life force, causing the latter, which is ever receptive, to work against success. Pardon. It is helpful to seek spiritual counsel at this point, and to associate with others who share in the positive outlook. All right. All right. Talking about, you know, bringing someone with the knowledge to help end the standstill. Right? And line 6. The return to the point of prosperity has been reached. How prosperity will be, how prosperous we will be is determined by our meditations and guidance from enlightened leaders. Since the time of prosperity does not last because the laws of the cyclical movement, avoiding disintegration when the standstill returns also depends on the guidance of enlightened leadership. Okay? So we're talking about, getting information from people who know how to make it move, right? People who know something about the inner workings, right? The cycles of things, in order to get things moving again, right? So, all right. So yeah, so that's it for now, folks. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? You know how we do. And we're going to keep on doing this, Yeah, expect me. I ain't going to, you know what I mean? I told you before, I'm not going to break my neck about it because, how things are. But yeah, we're going to get it done. We're going to, see it to the end, right? So, put me on notifications. That way you get it. Oh yeah, hit the like button, share the thing, that type of thing. Y'all know how we do. All right, so peace and love, folks. And we're going to see y'all next time.